hyped up on sugar, and then you can go have a drink after that. Really relax you this afternoon. Well, thanks for coming. How many of you out there realize that sometimes this is the hot seat right here? Yeah. So I thought I'd give a present to myself and maybe to you all, and have just a holiday cheer kind of storytelling Chuck Chat. And I'll tell you a little bit about me and my family and some funny stories and things that have happened to me over the years around the holidays, and hopefully you can tell me some stories and I get to listen to you for a little while. And we get to forget about the stresses of the buildings and things that are going on and just relax a little bit. So I'll get started, and then hopefully you all will jump in with some stories, okay? Well, we'll call 911, but first let's discuss our demands. This is how you get on the nice list. Bigger cookies. Hope your Christmas is full of family and fun. Good luck combining those two. I wasn't in a bar. I smell like smoke because I've been going down chimneys all flippin' night. How Santa, I did this one before, but I liked it. How Santa really finds out which reindeer can fly. Dang, let's try another one. All they had was carrot cake. Remember the good old days when reindeer games were leapfrog and tag? Honey, our lawyer wishes us, but in no way guarantees, a Merry Christmas. Hey, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yeah, I'll leave that up there for a little bit. Yeah, has that ever happened to anybody here? I got pooped on one time, but it didn't get in my mouth, thank goodness. Santa's accountants recommend budget cuts. If you raise your naughty and nice standards, you'll save billions on toys this year. Yeah. Did you eat all your beans? 15 cans. Yuck. Yeah. Poor Santa. We can stay home this year. Everyone is getting music, movies, games, and apps they can download from my website. Job evaluation day. And the reindeer's on the wall. Slow, lazy, bad attitude. Frosty, no! No, I said off to the Schmidt house. Working over the holidays? Off and on. Oh my God, they're eating noses. And there's a plate of carrots in there. Hey, runs with buffalo, come and meet flies with reindeer. Getting socks when I was 10. Getting socks now. Best gift ever. We're giving socks away today.
Yes.
Or a prize. I see naughty people. Poor guy. Mr. Claus, you're named in a class action lawsuit for discriminating against the naughty. I've been good, let's just leave it at that. My lawyer has advised me not to answer any more questions. New plan, we give out the lollipops after. Yeah, that's kind of gross right there. Hello, employment agency, there's been a mistake. I asked for 100 elves. Elvis. All right. So that's my wife and I. Yeah, she's cute, isn't she? I married up. So we've been married for 32 years. And this is us at our first Christmas together. And you notice her face? My mother is a fantastic cook. One of the best. But every once in a while, she takes a traditional family recipe and does some things to it that nobody should probably do. This year, she decided to put raisins and wild rice and oysters in the dressing. And that's my wife's face as she was my girlfriend at the time, tasting that concoction.
Y'all were at the children's table, right?
We were, yes. We were at the children's table, that's right. You see that guy looking at us? Does everybody here have an uncle in the family that's a little touched? Somebody in the family that's just a little touched? How many people? Yeah. Well, this is that guy. And so for us, I always thought he was just a little strange. He kind of scared me when I was younger. And then when I was 10, we had a blizzard in Missouri, about 12 inches of snow. And it was right on Christmas Eve. And basically everybody was grounded. But he got some chains out for his pickup truck, put chains on his tires, and filled the back of his pickup with cinder blocks, and drove around exchanging everybody's Christmas presents. And so he won me over then. The Thin Mints picture, I made the mistake the same year that I met Carrie and she came over for Christmas, of telling somebody in the family that I liked Thin Mints. And I received 22 boxes of Thin Mints from my family, and so Carrie really thought that there was a problem with me and bad breath. So these are my grandparents, Grandma and Grandpa Wilhelm, and wasn't I a cute baby? And my grandma Borst, and I was raised Catholic. First communion there. Henry Wilhelm, my grandpa, he was an interesting fellow. My grandmother used to make fantastic banana cake. And she also made Jell-O. All the time we had Jell-O. Sometimes it would be lime Jell-O with pineapple in it and cottage cheese. Sometimes it would be strawberry Jell-O with fruit in it. And it was always available. And I would go over to their house and we would eat lunch the same time every day at like 11:30. During the week you would have a sandwich and chips. And still to this day, so one of the most popular would be a bologna and cheese sandwich. And I cannot reproduce that bologna and cheese sandwich still today. I think it was probably the company. And but it was, wasn't anything extraordinary about it. But we would have to wait for afters. That was dessert. And so if you ate all of your lunch, you got afters. And my grandfather would go to the refrigerator and he would always pull out the Jell-O and put it on the table and he would say, "There's your afters." And I knew that there was banana cake in there. And I would tell him, I said, "Grandpa, I think there might be some banana cake in that fridge." He's like, "Let me look." "No, I don't see any banana cake, it's just Jell-O today." My grandma would walk in, "Henry, give him some banana cake." So I knew if I waited, I would get it. That convertible there was my first car. And my grandmother, Boris, she asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I wanted a baby blue convertible pedal car. And she couldn't find one locally, so she ended up, we lived around Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is about 100 miles south of St. Louis. So she ended up driving all the way to St. Louis to get a baby blue pedal car. There wasn't Amazon back then, so.
It's a 57 Thunderbird.
Right, yes it is. Yeah. A really great car, and it pedaled really well too. So this is Isabella, if you haven't seen her in a while. I left early one day and put together that float with some friends of ours. And Isabella's on the front. This is her gymnastics team. So gymnastics starts tonight. She has a placement meet, it's called, where she'll get placed in her rankings. And then we'll start competition season, which is most of the winter and a little bit of spring. So we'll be going all over the state of Texas to compete in meets. Anybody remember these stockings? I don't remember getting a lot of toys and candy, but I remember getting those. This basket is an interesting story. So when the pandemic started and we weren't going out anymore, we were all getting deliveries, right? We were having Amazon deliver everything, UPS was delivering everything. All of our shopping that year was online. And I guess it was probably around the 8th or so of December, and I'm walking around in the sun, or in the yard with my son, Ben, and this UPS guy yells over the fence. He says, how much crap do you need? So I was like, I'm sorry. I'm like, we're just trying to get, presents for the kids. We have, at the time, we had 4 children and 3 grandchildren at the time. So it was probably a lot. But I told my wife, I said, we really need to do something to warm up to the delivery drivers. So we put together this little basket and the sign. Basically, attention drivers, please help yourself to a snack. We thank you so much for delivering all of the gifts and everything for this season. We appreciate you. And it warmed everybody up after that. Things got better. But for a while there, they were just backing up the truck and just dumping stuff off the back of the truck. It got pretty rough for a while. There's a picture of Isabella at Westminster about 8 years ago. And then we're at San Antonio. We just went to San Antonio and enjoyed the Christmas lights parade on the barges on the Riverwalk. And have you ever how many have been to Johnson City and enjoyed the lights at Pertinalis and everything? It's beautiful over there if you get a chance to go. So we were playing hide and seek in the trees and lights. And then this is a picture of our Christmas tree in the house. It's a 12-foot tall Christmas tree. It almost killed me this year. I have to get on a ladder and put the top on, and it's kind of heavy. And so my son's holding the ladder, and I'm leaning over the tree to try and put the top on it. But we love that tree. We love having a big Christmas tree. Our ceiling's 14 feet tall, so we try to put a big tree up. And then we fill it with presents, so we need a big tree. And that's Santa Claus we caught in our house. No, it's actually a filter you can put on anything you want. And this is our yard. So if you haven't figured this out already, I really like the holidays. And over the years, if you've been here for very long, you probably watched the holidays grow bigger and more events and more stuff. I really do enjoy the holidays. And so you think I do a lot here, or we do a lot here? At home, it's about the same. I put up about 30,000, 40,000 Christmas lights. We decorate around the house. This is our yard. And when we decorate all of the pasture. We have about 30 acres, and we have trees in there, and we decorate the trees. We decorate the trees in memory of relatives that we've lost. And then we put lights, solar-powered Christmas lights on all of them. And then we do hay rides with my tractor, which that's a picture of my orange tractor, my Kubota right there, and the trailer. And we take the grandkids on hay rides, and we sing carols and all of that. So, all right, I'm gonna stop there. Who wants to tell a funny story? Doesn't have to be about Christmas or the holidays, but just something that comes to mind. All right.
Well, my name is Dan Waddle. My wife Phyllis and I live in apartment 508 in Preston. I had a 30-year career in the Air Force, and one of my assignments was to the air base in England called Alconbury. and I was there flying an airplane called the F-4 Phantom. And one Christmas, my father-in-law had died, and my mother-in-law was visiting us for Christmas. This is 1968. So my son was 10 years old, my daughter was 8 years old. And we had a little car called a Hillman Minx. It's a 4-door English car, a little bit bigger than a Volkswagen, but not much bigger than a Volkswagen. And we were going from England over to Bad Homburg, Germany to visit some friends at Christmas time. And we took a vacation and we decided to go down to Dover, cross on the ferry over to Calais, France, drive across France. Now I had my mother-in-law and my son and daughter in the back seat of this small Hillman Minx, and my wife and I are in the front seat. We are about halfway through France and we spend the night. We just see a sign that said accommodations. We went into this beautiful, very old French manor house, and we got 2 rooms at $35 each, which was very good, but we paid $175 for dinner that night in the dining room. Food was a little bit more expensive. We got up the next morning and we're going to Garmisch, Germany. Has anyone in here ever been to Garmisch? Well, you know it's a beautiful city in Bavaria, south of Munich. All the homes are white, painted with little Hansel and Gretel scenes on the outside, and it's just a beautiful setting. And we were coming out of France, going into Switzerland, coming up over the Alps, and it started getting dark. And it started snowing. And I mean, it was snowing. I've never seen it snow so hard in my life, I could hardly see to drive. And I said to myself, I think maybe I've killed my children. And I said, I'm going to go to the first light. So I look, I'm coming to this gorge and I see a light off to my left, and I go to this light. And in 1968, there are no motels in Europe. And this is a motel that had just opened. And we were one of their first customers. So we pulled into the motel, had a great night, and had a great meal. And the next morning we head out for Garmisch, Germany. And again, it is snowing so hard I can barely see to drive, but they had plowed the roads. The roads were pretty good. And I lost the windshield wiper on the driver's side. It stripped gears. And I'm driving, leaning over to the right, in front of my wife, driving a car in a snowstorm. And my family is very quiet. They're all frightened. And I said to myself, I've got to cheer things up a little bit. So I said, okay, folks, I've come up with a song. I want everybody to sing the song, and everybody follow me. And here's the song. Coming in on a wing and a prayer. Look below, there's Garmisch over there. Though there's one wiper gone, we will still carry on, coming in on a wing and a prayer. So everybody started singing, and it livened it up a little bit. We got into Garmisch, checked into a hotel, and I went up to get some skis. I'm at the Army, at the Air Force Special Service. I'm going to teach my kids to ski. And then I see this helicopter land, pick up 2 men with broken legs from skiing. I take the skis back, check them in, and get get ice skates for the whole family. And we go ice skating. And the most prized possession in my life right now is in my bathroom downstairs. There's a picture, it's an 8x10 picture of me holding my son's hand and my daughter's hand. His ankles are in, her ankles are blowing out. And I'm holding him up, and under the caption it says, Dear Dad, thank you for always being there, holding yourself straight, being there for and keeping us in line. And it says, Happy Father's Day, 2003. And I got to see that picture every day there in Garmisch, Germany. Now, I'll end the story by saying, on our way to Bad Homburg to visit these friends, we went up through the Netherlands and via Paris, France. And my son is rather unorthodox. We went into the Louvre, And all of a sudden the alarms went off and the gendarmes were surrounding us and he was sitting on King Louis VI chair, king chair. And they said, we're going to kick you out of the Louvre. And I said, no, he's only 10 years old, it's okay. And then they finally kicked us out when he straightened the painting in the Louvre. We went from there to The Hague. He got his head caught in the turnstile at a little grocery store. They had to take the turnstile out. We went from there up to Amsterdam. We checked into a hotel and had 6 floors. We're on the 6th floor. And does anybody remember a Super Ball? They used to bounce up to their own height. He dropped a Super Ball out of the 6th floor window in Amsterdam, and to my knowledge, it's still bouncing over there today. So, thank you.
Good story.
I'm Sam Sampson, and in 1976, Ellen Bravinsky and I married, and between us we had 6 daughters. And as we merged families, when I did something weird, my oldest daughter would say to Ellen, "Did you know this about this man before you married him?" And she always said, "Yes, I asked lots of questions." So when we went to look for a Christmas tree, and we were out in the lot, and I found one, so high, and I thought it was shaped nice. And I said, "What about this one?" And Ellen says, "Of course not." She said, "It won't do at all." And I said, "Well, what's the matter with it?" She says, "It's too short." Ellen's half foot taller than I am. And I said, "Well, how big does it have to be?" And she says, high enough to make me feel like a little girl. So we had a Christmas tree that came close to the 9-foot ceiling in our room that year. Just one other tag on this is that 2 years later, our 15-year-old daughter Barbara decided to write the Christmas letter for the family. And she wrote something about every member of the family. Everyone thought it was terrifically funny, except for them personally. And the title of her Christmas letter was "The Babinski-Sampson Steeles Commune, a rundown of inmates."
Kathy Akers. My mother's name was Ruth. She was born January 1st, 1914. She got delivered okay, but the midwife was drunk.
That's good.
Well, I'll tell a little Christmas tale about some of the characters in my hometown, El Dorado, Texas. Y'all know about little town characters, I think. Well, Mom and Paul were sitting around one day, and Paul said, "Now, Mom, this year I want you to have something real special for Christmas. I want you to think about something you never have had before, but you've always wanted." So Mom was thinking. She said, "Paul, I want a milk bath." Said, "I hear about all them fancy ladies in the big cities and they have a milk bath." And Paul was shaking his head. "Well, all right, if that's what you want." So he called up the dairy and said, "Y'all need to send out enough milk so Mom can take a bath." The dairyman said, "Do you want it pasteurized?" He said, "No, just get it to her butt. She'll splash it in her eyes."
I'm Fred Morgan, 314 in Preston. 1979, we moved from Austin to San Antonio, where I was becoming the new pastor of a church that was less than a year old. And it was Christmas time, and we had an office, and it had a Christmas tree in the office. We had a Christmas tree at our house, Well, you know, sometimes Christmas trees die. They turn brown before Christmas. This particular year, our Christmas tree died and was very brown. And what are you going to do? I've got an 8-year-old kid and a 4-year-old daughter, and got to have a tree. So I realized that the tree that we had at the church office, a Scotch pine, I could go, nobody's going to use it now because we've done all the Christmas stuff we were going to do. So I went and got the Scotch pine Christmas tree and brought it to the house. And we bought the tree at Wolf Nursery in San Antonio, and they guaranteed the tree. So I took the tree back. Now this tree is dead. It's got needles that are dropping from it rapid every second, it seemed like. There were no Christmas trees left in the lot. All of them were gone. But they gave me my money back for the tree. And as I walk out, someone comes in and says, "They still have a tree!" And they sold that tree to that person.
Come on.
I'm Patricia O'Neill, and Paul and I live in apartment 119. Because we live in apartment 119. And this is a story about shopping for Christmas trees. Fred's story made me think of this, that when our son was about 8 and our daughter was about 10, we went Christmas tree shopping, and you know, the usual thing, well, it's not tall enough and it's not big enough at the bottom, so, you know, not pointed at the top. And we looked around, we couldn't find our son Paul. So we're going through this forest trying to find his 8-year-old, and you know, suddenly he shows up, and this Christmas tree lot had a lot of yard art as well as trees. And he has a life-size flamingo around the neck of this life-size flamingo that he's bringing as a candidate for our Christmas tree. So every year he gets something to do with flamingos at Christmas time. So anyway, it was fun.
Good afternoon. I just forgot we were walking over here. I think it goes. My son and husband were talking one day, and my husband said, "Ben, I've had a report that somebody has been taking this is what I've forgotten. What's in the center of the wheel?" Yeah, okay. Yeah. And somebody had been taking the hubcaps off the cars that were parked in front of our house, which was right next to a restaurant. So as people were eating their food, who's out there taking hubcaps? But my son and the brat who lived across the street. And so my son was finally caught. My husband caught him and took him in. Said, "Son, tell me what you were doing." He wasn't about ready to say anything. And I said, "Well, I think you've been taking hubcaps off of people's cars when they come and go eat." And he said, "But Daddy, what's a hubcap?" Which is a good question for a little boy that knows.
Well, Dan and Phyllis told me to tell this story to all of you, so with that recommendation, the Waddles recommendation, this is a true story. And most of my stories happen in Westminster. And this one did too, not very many days ago. And I don't even know if the lady who did this is here or not. But I'll take her, I don't know her name. We were down in the Laurel, and of course they have run out of the chef specials. And because everyone wants to eat there, they were gone. But we had a very nice meal, we were enjoying ourselves, and we walked out. My wife was ahead of me, wanting to talk to somebody. And there was a table of really pleasant ladies sitting right there, and I was going by, and so I smiled at them. And this one lady who was facing me said, "You're the one." I said, "Me? You're the one, I know, it's you." I said, "What did I do?" And she sat there and tapped her finger on the table to the cadence of the staccato responses she gave. And I said, "Well, tell me, what happened?" She said, "You're the one that pulls the weeds out there in the courtyard of the Preston." And I said, "No, not me." I said, "Those people are hired by Chuck. And he has a contract with them." No, I don't mean those people. I mean the man that comes out here every day and pulls weeds. I said, "Well, it wasn't me." "I'm pretty sure it was," she said, "and what bothered me was I have a weed that I'm trying to get rid of. It has been there for a week, and nobody pulls that weed. And I saw this man pulling weeds around us, and I tapped on a window and looked at him, and with my other hand pointed to the weed that really needed to be pulled that I can't stand outside of my window, which is on the courtyard." I said, "Well, I'm sorry." He just walked away. He didn't pull my weed. And so I said, "Well, it wasn't me. It was probably Jim Woodrick. Because he's our man that walks around and pulls weeds. And I'm sure if you said something to him or you said something to Chuck at the next chat, they'll come around and pull the weed that you hate that has transfixed your attention in front of your apartment." So I then said, "But I'm going to leave now." And so as I'm walking out, I said to my wife, "Why would somebody confuse me with Jim Woodrick?" She said, "Well, you both have rosy cheeks. And if you look at both of you together with a side view, you two look a lot alike. And I really think that you could lose a few pounds, and this woman would get the right person pulling her weeds." I said, "Thanks." So that's another feather in my cap for tonight. And then we walked home. Strange things happen at Westminster, and it's so much fun.
I hope Jim finds her weed.
Yes, I'm sure she's going to call you about
Yeah, I'm
it.
sure she will.
This is not a Christmas story, but Judy's story reminded me of the older couple who were sitting out on their front porch rocking one evening, and they'd been married a long time, and he suddenly realized it had been years and years since he had told her that he loved her. And they were New Englanders, and so they were pretty short in their speech. So he thought, well, I'll, being married this long, I'll tell her again I love her, but he couldn't get the word love out. And so he said, Myrtle, I'm proud of you. And she said, what? And he said, Myrtle, I'm proud of you. And she said, speak up. You know I'm hard of hearing. So he just shouted at her. He said, Myrtle, I'm proud of you. And she looked at him and said, well, I'm tired of you too.
As many of y'all know, the last few years of my working career, I was church administrator of First Presbyterian Church in Raleigh. Now, North Carolina is not necessarily known for bad weather, but in the Christmas time of 1988, we had a bad ice storm. The only trouble is it didn't start till up in the afternoon. And that morning, the minister sent out a notice that we would still have Christmas Eve services, even though the weatherman was forecasting bad weather. You know, ministers never like to cancel a service, especially on Christmas Eve. So, long about lunchtime, it starts sleeting and temperatures are dropping very quickly. So I told Judy, I said, you know, we better go down to the church and get ready because I'm not too sure the staff is going to be able to make it in, as most of them, like a lot of our staff, ride buses to work. So Judy and I, just to be on the safe side, grabbed the chainsaw and rakes and that, and piled into the car and headed to the church. We had a narrow driveway leading from one of the main streets into the church, and as I turned into that driveway, there was a gigantic limb right across the driveway blocking everything. So we grabbed the chainsaw, started sawing up the limbs, got everything moved out of the way, went in the church, got ice melt, put it all over the sidewalks, the steps, and everything. By this time, it's on up about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The first service is going to start about 5. Just as we were finishing up, I got a phone call. Hey, Charlie, we're canceling all the services tonight.
I'm Sandra Wilson, and I live in the Windex, as we call it. I have it could be a really long story, but I'll try to make it a little shorter. Rogers and I were married 63 years, and I met him when I was 12 years old. We were in the 6th grade at Robert E. Lee School in Austin. Yay! And we dated off and on for 13 years. I would get upset with him, or he'd get upset with me, and we'd break up, and then we'd get back together again. Well, it came to be one Christmas Eve. My mother and father knew what was going to happen. He had been to them to ask permission for my hand, but I didn't know it. She said, what are you going to give him for Christmas? And I said, a transistor radio. They cost about $5. And she said, well, okay. She wanted me to give him something else, but then she'd spill the beans. So that evening, here he comes, knocks on the door and comes in, and he comes into the living room, gets down on his knees and asks me to marry him. I was so shocked, and this is a true story. I really, really didn't know it was going to happen, but I was so excited and so happy. Well, the next day we left on a trip with 2 other couples for Aspen to ski. And we get there, and I'm rooming with this lady, the other person's date, and we go out, and I've never skied. He has. He puts on his skis and helps me with mine a little bit and says, follow me. So I did. I followed him, and halfway up the mountain I fell off the T-bar, and he kept going. And he saw me, but he kept going. By the time I got over to the side and had fallen, and just numerous times, people would stop and say, can we help? I said, how do you stop? And they said, sit down. So all the way down the mountain, I'm sitting down. And by the time I get there, I'm so wet and so angry at him for leaving me there. I wondered if I really wanted to go through with this man that I had known for so long. But we did. We got through it. We got married. We had 2 daughters, beautiful daughters, and to this day, I am so, so thankful that I got to spend 63 years with him.
Did you ever go skiing again? Oh, well, good.
Next. So what is that? Anyone has a story?
Anybody else? There's a prize involved. Are your feet cold? Warm yourself up with some good socks. All right.
Ruth insists.
Oh, there you go. Good. Uh-oh.
So Sandra's story reminds me of one of ours. It's about 1990 or 91, something like that. And we had a weekend house on Francis's family farm, and we had Thanksgivings there frequently for the whole family. And so our oldest daughter had just met a guy that she really liked, and his name was Scott. And so the daughter calls up, she talks to Francis, and it's going on, and pretty soon the phone comes to me. And so my daughter says, Dad, said, I've met this man and I like him a lot. Would it be okay if I brought him for Thanksgiving? Of course it would be okay. And she said, well, Dad, I have to tell you that he has a ponytail. And this is 1990, and I am somewhat on the conservative side. And so I thought real quickly for once in my life, and I said, Amy, does he have earrings too? And she said, oh, no, not earrings. I said, bring him on. And he's my son-in-law today.
Well, good deal. Did he get a haircut shortly after?
No, but he's got one since.
I bet he did.
I'm Bill Clark, and I was telling a story about our son. I was in school one summer, and our son was 5 years old, and there were 2 little girls that lived next door that he thoroughly enjoyed, that we met that summer, that he thoroughly enjoyed visiting with. They were older, and they just had a grand time together. And they had this game that he thoroughly loved. He just thought it was the most fun. And they were very possessive of the game themselves. And they played it quite a bit all the time that they were together. And they were going to be gone. And so Bill asked if he could borrow the game. And they pondered that for quite a while, and they finally said, we'll let you borrow it, but you have to promise that you'll return it. Oh, I'll return it, yes, I promise. Now you can't keep it. This is not yours. We're not giving it to you. You're going to have to promise that you'll return it. I'll promise I'll return it. Well, okay. We're going to give you let you use the game, but you promise that you return it. I promise I'll return it. But I'm never going to get through with it.
I'm Kay Brumley in 4031. Is that the funniest thing that ever happened to us on Christmas is that we have 4 children, and we all went to church Christmas Eve. We came home and we ate dinner, and we got the children to bed fairly late, and we had had a lot of wine at dinner, and we're feeling good, and thought, well, we'll just get out Santa Claus and be through. Well, I had hidden all of the toys that I had bought in the trunk of my car because I have a son that snoops all over the house and always found out what we were giving him for Christmas. So when everybody went to bed, it was about 11:30. We went out to get the stuff out of the car and I couldn't find the key to my trunk. So at 11:30 at night, Ford was calling around for a locksmith. And needless to say, he was so unhappy with me. So we finally got the locksmith out and got the trunk open and got the presents put together. And it opened about Christmas morning and everything was just perfect. Except about 11, Alan, who was my Snoopy son, said, well, where are the rest of the presents? And I said, you know, they're all out. And he said, oh, no, they aren't. Here's the key to the trunk. And I know you've got presents hidden in the trunk. And I had no idea he had the key. It was very traumatic.
Stories?
Okay, I'll finish up with some cartoons. Hey Dad, some kid told me Santa Claus wasn't real. He said it's just you and Mom. Seriously? Well, I was hoping that we wouldn't have this conversation for a long time, but I guess I don't have much choice now. See, the truth is, Champ, a lot of kids suck. I knew it. Here's the bike I want. If you'll just fill in your credit card info, we can take care of this right now. Post-Christmas cleanup, we are way beyond needing to tidy up the house. I swear to God, at this point, we're just looking for survivors. I found one. Yeah, our house looks like Christmas exploded when our grandkids are done. So, have you all heard of the Elf on the Shelf? It sounded like a great idea to start, but this happened to me. What's supposed to happen? Every night, the elf flies to the North Pole and back. So when you wake up, he'll be in some wacky new place in the house. And the kids are all like, wow, that sounds great. What really happens, though, is, hey, why didn't the elf move last night? Well, maybe the holidays are already exhausting and he overextended himself when he decided to do this. So I've forgotten to move the elf, and that's really bad. Yeah. Would you look at that? They're making a baby right in the front yard. It's disgraceful. There's now an app that counts down the days to Christmas. We had something similar when I was a kid. We called it a calendar. Fruitcake and I have a lot in common. Nobody really wants either of us over for the holidays, but we show up just the same. Anybody getting fruitcakes for Christmas? I did that for the board one year. It was a total flop. Total flop. I had never been to Collins Street Bakery, and I went there on the way to vacation. It's wonderful, fruitcake, but Johnny Carson ruined fruitcake. If you remember, he used to joke about fruitcake. There's really only one in the whole world that gets passed around from person to person. So anyway, I think he ruined fruitcake. If men were in charge of holiday decorations, and on that I'll end. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you very much.